Hi, my name's Angie. I'm part of the Sisterly Collective, and I thought I'd take a few minutes this afternoon to talk about how Sisterly came about and why we were interested in creating a new brand and a label that really tried to engage in a practical way with the sustainable research that we'd both been interested in for quite a while. So Sisterly really began with many discussions around some research that I'd started doing in 2007 that really interrogated what's the future for fashion, particularly the fashion industry. I was very interested in how we might improve employment outcomes for people, particularly in rural and remote areas, because fashion's a really exciting industry. It's a rewarding industry to be a part of. But at that time, fashion was mainly limited to people who were willing to move to the major centres in Australia. And by that, I basically mean Sydney. And more recently, Melbourne has also started to be a part of that fashion scene that's international. Yeah, so how do people who perhaps live out in remote areas Australia's a very big place. The coastal centres are a very small part of that place, and that's where we began. So on top of that, it was also really important that we develop a new business model, one that would be sustainable, one that would generate enough profit to, keep the system alive and feed back into the system to allow more people to engage with, the idea of making things. Making things is really important to us historically in Australia, but it's very important, and we're discovering more about this as more research is done in the field, in terms of satisfaction of having employment that makes you feel really worthwhile, and it lets you contribute to something that is a major part of our lives. Fashion's not always just about how we look. It's not always about how the clothes we design look. Design is really about making things the best that they can be. Now, part of that is certainly that they look good, of course. Everyone wants to look good. But another part of that is that they fit really well, that they're high performance, that they, look good in a way that can perform well for the task that they're being used for. So in this case, the Sisterly dress I've been working on this afternoon is a long-term project we've both been contributing to, that's Millie and I, in trying to make a dress that is really versatile, that can go anywhere, that can do pretty much anything actually. We wanted something people could feel really good in, and I think for me, fashion is really also about how you feel. So how you feel in terms of how the garment actually works with you, how it works with your body, because we're not all supermodels, and I would say unfortunately, but I don't think it is unfortunate. I think it's really great that people can be themselves and they look themselves, but it's also really important to feel importantly happy. It's important to feel that you're a part of society. So I think the Sisterly dress, it's specifically designed to suit everybody, and I do mean that. And the way that we produce it is also really important, because if we can go back to more authentic methods of cutting and sewing and making, I think it allows for a genuine ability to do customization, which our contemporaries and our modern manufacturing system just simply can't handle. So back to the original project, which looked at the idea of a minimal cutting proposal. It looked at how could we produce garments with a very low bootstrapping model, so anyone can really get into the business with a few $100s. They can be ready to go, they can be producing, they can be contributing, they can be building up to making a sustainable income for themselves through participating in the fashion industry, and ultimately that's what we both were really dedicated to. So the project now is in its 10th year. You might find that really surprising that we're just launching our products in this 100 Dresses campaign after 10 years of research and development. But the thing is, if you want to make something good, it takes a long time to make. It takes a lot of thinking. It takes a lot of trial and error to really get to a position where you feel confident in the product you've developed. We've had a lot of amazing makers give us feedback on various iterations of a dress that we could produce that would allow people this opportunity. We feel we're finally at that stage. The dress we've got is the dress. We've incorporated that flexibility in the design so that there's variations and options for people to really try and engage with makers to get the product that they want. So another really important aspect of design, it is the aesthetic, it is the fit, it's the cut, it's the ability for the product to be sustainable and to generate opportunities for people. But on top of all of that, there's also the question of trying to have a product that would have a minimal negative impact on the environment. So we're talking about, and you would have heard this mentioned by people, the minimal carbon footprint. This is important to us. It's part of trying to produce something that's really authentic, because how you feel is how you look. It's physically how you feel, how the fashion interacts with your body, but it's also emotionally how you feel. You can feel good about this dress. It's going to be made by real workers. It's going to be made by people who are paid fairly, and it's going to help people who are out there, perhaps not with the opportunities to engage in fashion right now, to become a part of something that's a major international industry that is satisfying, that can help them to achieve personal goals in terms of having their own business, changing lives. And I guess that's really what sustainable fashion for us is about. It's changing lives. Buying this dress, it's not charity. You get a great product, but you also lean in to help people that really matter. It was equally important, and it took quite a while to actually get here to a point where we have found an amazing Australian produced fabric, and that fabric is merino wool. It is vitally important that we try to utilise things that are produced locally. Australia has a very long and embedded history of working with wool. There's generations of family on farms in Australia who have made their living by growing wool. We have some of the most brilliant wool scientists and researchers in the world coming from Australia. So I think to find a fabric finally that was grown here, produced here, spun here, we felt finally that the ability or the aims that we had with Sisterly to produce this amazing product, the forward thinking that we'd had 10 years ago finally caught up with the reality of what was available now to produce the garment. So I really hope you can have a think about whether you'd like one of the Sisterly dresses. I can assure you, once you try it on and you start wearing it, it's going to be the thing that you're going to want to wear all the time. The fabric is amazing on the skin. Wool has a natural property of having lanolin embedded in the fibre. That just the luxury, the moisturization to the skin. I guess I didn't really think about what kind of damage other fibres might be doing on a microscopic level, until I had my first merino wool knitted piece. That was just, it was actually really not a very attractive skirt that I made to test the fabric originally, and I remember just wanting to get home and put this skirt on because it just made my skin feel so amazing. And I know with the prototypes and the sampling that we've done, it is very much that case. We miss the dresses. Like if they're sent for wash testing, or if they've had to be returned for pattern adjustments, it's quite a sense of loss that this dress that you've started wearing, that you've fallen in love with, has gone away. And that once we sort of reached that point, I think that was like the goosebump moment of we've got this right, we've nailed it, this dress rocks. So now that we've got the product, we've got the fabric, we've got the cut, we've got the sizes, and we've got the makers, what we really need is to get more makers, and we need to let people have a go. So this campaign, 100 Dresses, is really about, why don't you give someone a hand up, let them have a go. They might not be able to sew now, we're going to help them, we're going to train them. This dress is the easiest dress I think it is possible to sew. We've selected a particular sewing machine that costs $100, so people can actually really have a realistic chance of getting into the game with very low cost startup. If you think it's a dress that you would never wear, you can please buy one for someone you know who will wear it. If it's a dress that you will never wear and no one you know would ever wear, what you can do is also fund a maker to make the dress, and that will be really helping someone out, and it will be helping to build this community of makers. So I guess the ultimate aim for sustainable fashion is to have a network of makers that can produce sustainably in Australia. So you may know, but I'm a senior lecturer in fashion design at RMIT University, and I've worked there for a number of years. I have a PhD in fashion design, and I think it's really important that the research that we do within the university and the kind of ideas and theories that we have really have a chance to get turned into reality, that they can be put out there, they can be put into practice in a real way, not in an artificial laboratory kind of way. So I'm thrilled to be a part of Sisterly Collective and to have a chance to contribute in this way to a new part of what the fashion industry in Australia might be, because it's a really significant point in time, I believe, in looking at how can we reinvent Australian fashion, how can we invent a way of manufacturing Australian fashion in Australia and be sustainable, but also be ethical, be authentic, and that's what's important to us.